Hope your knowledge of 1980s politicians is good. This is ChinnyVision. Now, if you're in the UK, you'll be familiar with the Spitting Image TV show, ran between 1984 and 1996, shown on Sunday nights, and contained caricatures of politicians, of celebrities and so on, and was very near the knuckle at the time. In its heyday, the ratings were really high for the show, something I think saying like 10 million viewers in the late 80s, and the show was popular to the extent that when the puppet makers sold off some of the puppets, actually some of the celebrities and politicians actually bought their own puppets. I know Danny Baker, for example, owns his own Spitting Image puppet. Anyway, so Domark picked up the license for a computer game version of the game. We're starting off with the Amstrad CPC, a game I owned on budget via the Hit Squad. Picked it up in the early 90s, but it came out in 89, was published by Domark. And the game intro gives you the plot. Within the next 7 years, a world war greater than all other wars will take place. A war so great even the Swiss will get involved this time. A war so terrible that the Italians have already surrendered. One leader will emerge from this war to rule the world. It is your task to stop this leader and save the world. These are the 6 challenges for world power. And it is a 1 or 2 player game, so you can play head to head. And it's a fighter. And what you do is you select who you want to be and your opponent, and you battle them. It's a bit like Street Fighter 2, except with politicians and famous people like the Pope. And so you have 6 fighters to choose from: Pope John Paul II, Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, Botha, the old leader of South Africa, the Ayatollah Khomeini, and Mikhail Gorbachev. So this is completely dated to this era. Even when I got this game on budget, some of these guys were no more. I think Margaret Thatcher had gone, Ronald Reagan had probably gone by then, and Botha, whatever his name was, had gone as well. This is still the Amstrad CPC version. And here we are in Iran, and we are Ronald Reagan, who is a clown. You can press space and a sidekick will come on the screen. It's supposed to be the case you can only call your sidekick in twice during a fight, but in fact on the Amstrad and some of the other versions, you can just keep on calling them in. I think it's the C64 that seems to vigorously enforce the 2-hit rule per fight. Over the C64, looking very similar to the Amstrad CPC, except with a flashing cursor and slightly more muted colours, as you'd expect. Works exactly the same way though. The gameplay's much faster. Here we are, Ronald Reagan versus the Pope. And there you go, I've already used up all my sidekicks there, so that's it. So on the C64 version, you definitely get only 2 goes at your sidekick. And each fighter has a special move. In the case of Ronald Reagan, his head pops out. With the Ayatollah, that something comes from underneath his beard and hits people. Margaret Thatcher blows smoke in your face, and so on. Over the Sinclair Spectrum, and the position of the fighters are different. Just Mikhail Gorbachev would usually be on the bottom right, but here he isn't. So here's the Pope versus the Ayatollah, the fight everybody wants to see. And it's very much similar on the Spectrum. It's quite fast and plays quite well, quite enjoyable. But on all of the 8 bits, it is a multi-load. So you have to load in each fighter, and that means searching and seeking through the tape. It can be quite annoying. Certainly a game better played on disc. That said, I had it on budget on the Amstrad CPC and enjoyed it immensely. So, you know, I think we used to put up with a bit more inconvenience back in the day. Over to the Atari St, and same tune as the Amstrad CPC. Different layout on the politicians again, and different styles of graphics from the 8 bits. I think it's some animation as well when you put the cursor over the fighters. And look, you get a Conservative Party guide to the Earth, and when you move it over the map, it gives you some vaguely insulting things about that part of the world. Probably couldn't do that these days. Certainly not one of those that just came up. If you're wondering what the background noise is here, Storm Eleanor is currently blowing its way outside, but I thought I was going to do Spitting Image anyway, so we will continue through unless a tree falls through my office. So you choose your champion and then you choose your opponent, exactly the same as the Amstrad CPC Spectrum Commodore 64 versions. And there we go, you've got Holy Coolness will be host to Groovy Gorby. And you can press 0 on these versions to call in your psychic. Nice graphics here on the ST, much better animation, exactly what you want from a 16-bit version. However, it's very easy to defeat your opponents, unlike the 8-bit versions. There's some lovely detail in the backgrounds as well. They've spent time doing these graphics. I do like them. And over to the Amiga, and yes, it's the same as the ST, except it has slightly better music. Select our opponent again. And it works the same in all 5 versions. You select the person you want to be and select your opponent, off you go. And here we go, Margaret Thatcher versus the Pope. Here comes Dennis Thatcher. All the sidekicks are themed, so Margaret Thatcher's sidekick is her husband Dennis. There's a lot more animation as well when things happen with the sidekicks, and animation in the background on the ST and Amiga version. The 8-bits are fairly static, except for some flashing colours that kind of add a little bit of animation, but very basic kind of thing. So we're on round 4 now of 5. And will Margaret Thatcher triumph, or will it be the Pope? And the Pope wins. So you've got 5 rounds to go through, basically, because only one leader can be left standing. Back to the Amstrad CPC, and it's quite a jump coming back to the 8-bit versions after those wonderful animation on the 16-bit versions. But you can see on the CPC it's very colourful and playable. A little bit unfair to put it up against 16-bit versions. Some of the levels have very garish backgrounds and unfortunate colour choices, but it's not significant. And one important thing to note, and I don't often mention this on ChinnyVision, but I used to play this on my cousin's green screen 464, and all the levels were extremely playable on a green screen, nothing hard to see or anything like that. So something to note there, whether that was intentional or not. I don't know how much attention people paid to how well things looked on a green screen back in the day. The C64 version certainly has better background colour choices, especially on the Moscow level here, which is very garish greeny blue on the Amstrad, but more sensible grey on the C64. And on the Spectrum, here's Downing Street with Ronald Reagan fighting Margaret Thatcher. Again, it's monochrome, as you'd expect on the Spectrum. Doesn't quite capture the spirit of the TV series that the C64 and the Amstrad versions do. It's a very colourful series with these caricatures, and all these caricatures on the game are based on those in the series or at that time. They did update them, so Margaret Thatcher I think went through 3 iterations in the series, and we're looking at the middle iteration, the late 80s iteration on this game. So back on the Amiga version, and you keep on fighting through, and you can change your champion at any time, so you don't have to keep on fighting as one character. All you got to do is end up with you as the victor. Doesn't matter, you can change your fighter at any time, or any time between levels, and keep on fighting. That's not a problem. So if you want to start off as Ronald Reagan and end up as Mikhail Gorbachev, you can. That's not a problem. There you go, Mikhail Gorbachev versus the Pope. And the Queen of the United Kingdom presides over all of this as well. On the top corner, they're giving commentary in the little box there. This is the last fight. It is Mikhail Gorbachev versus the Pope, and I have won. It's very easy. It takes about 15 minutes to get through the game on the ST and the Amiga. So congratulations, Smarty Pants. Pity you weren't smart enough to notice you've still got one Wally left to rule the world, and no attackers around to blow their credibility. Looks like you've blown it, unless I can fix something up. Okay, I've got it. The new leader is due at BP to pick up the spare keys to the world, and the mud wrestling gear is still up in Philip's study from last night's bachelor party. Now if we switch off all the lights, and so you end up in the dark with these splatters appearing on the screen with these eyes. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I've tried pressing fire and moving the joystick around. It always seems to result in the same thing, and that's that I win. You've now destroyed the credibility of all 6 candidates for world leader. None can now hope to rule and will have to spend the rest of their days appearing on Wogan and Blankety Blank, having their life serialised in the Mail on Sunday and being thoroughly pathetic and unimportant. Congratulations. Let us now see who will take over the world in... Hey, it's Rambo or Sylvester Stallone. One and the same. Spitting Image is a novel fighting game. It ostensibly tries to capture the spirit of the TV show. Doesn't really quite get that satirical thing. I think they've gone for the best option though. There are other things they could have done. Of course, Domark did produce Splitting Images, which was originally called Spitting Image until they got into trouble, which was pictures of politicians and famous people split up in a puzzle game. And this is the official Spitting Image game, also by Domark. I think of the two, certainly the official game is more fun, especially with 2 players. This game really does come into its own like many fighters when you've got 2 people battling against each other, although the moves are very, very limited. On the 8-bits, the Amstrad is very colourful and a little bit slower than the C64 version, which is a bit more muted. Both of them play about the same, although on the Amstrad you seem to always have infinite amount of access to your sidekicks, whereas on the C64 it's limited to just 2 goes with the sidekick per bout on the fighting. Spectrum version, yeah, it's fast and it plays well, just a little bit unattractive. Not bad though. ST and Amiga version, well, graphically they are pretty much completely identical, and they play at the same speed. The Amiga has slightly better sound, whereas the ST has the same sound as the Amstrad CPC. The trouble is, on the 16-bit versions, the game is incredibly, unbelievably easy. I completed Spitting Image on the Amiga on my first go. That's 15 minutes of gameplay for a game that probably cost me £25 back in the day. Yes, you can go through them again and play with different characters. Yes, you've got 2-player, but ultimately there's only 15 minutes of gameplay in there, and that's insane for a full price 16-bit game that would be the equivalent of about £40, £45 today. As somebody who picked this up on budget on the Amstrad CPC, yes, it was certainly worth £3.99 of my money. Full price? Probably on the 8-bits, but on the 16-bits I'm afraid, yes, there's curiosity value, especially if you're a fan of a TV show, to check this one out. But, as I say, there's only 15 minutes of gameplay there. It is novel, it is attractive, but overall I think the versions you want to play are the 8-bit versions. There's just more gameplay there because they're harder.